I now recognize Mr. Suozzi, the gentleman from New York, for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, I just want to remind my colleagues that you've lived a great American success story. You were a political refugee born in Havana, Cuba, came to the United States of America, graduated from law school, became a prosecutor for 9 years as an assistant United States attorney. You were appointed as the youngest U.S. attorney in the nation. You were the director of the U.S. Citizenship Program and Deputy Secretary of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. And now you've achieved this position as Secretary. And I want to thank you for your public service to our country. I'm new to Congress. I just got elected in February, and I was watching what was going on down here. And it's like, you know, you kind of tune it out a little bit, all the back and forth. And one of the things that I've talked about in my campaign and certainly want to highlight here is that every problem we face in our country is complicated. Nothing is simple. And you cannot solve complicated problems in an environment of fear and anger, where everybody's just yelling and screaming at each other. It's impossible. You can never get to the meat and bones of doing the work that's necessary. And that's why I was excited by the Senate bill, the bipartisan compromise that you worked on along with Senators Lankford and Murphy and Sinema, which didn't have everything I wanted in it, but it was a compromise. And my colleagues, you know, let's say they get everything they want. Let's say Trump is elected. Let's say they get the majority of the Congress. Let's say they get the majority of the Senate. I hope those things don't happen, but let's say it all happens. Under no circumstances will they get enough votes in the Senate to actually pass a bill. We'll have to do something bipartisan under any circumstances. And you can't get a bipartisan bill under any circumstances unless people work together. So it's great that we got more money for the Customs Border Patrol agents to bring it up to 22,000 in this most 2024 appropriation. And we got more detention beds. But under the Senate bill, we would have gotten more Customs Border Patrol officers as well. And we would have gotten more detention beds. And we would have gotten money for the wall. And we would have gotten money for technology. And we would have gotten money for a whole bunch of other things. And there would have been some serious policy changes. So I just want to use my last half of my time to ask you. The thing I'm most interested in and excited about is this idea that we have to reduce the time it takes to adjudicate asylum cases. It seems like that's the most important thing we have to do, because right now we've got all these people, you know, the crisis, everybody's freaking out, so many people coming over the border. It seems like it's calmer now, but there'll be a surge again, I'm sure, between now and the summer. But if people have to wait 5, 6, 7, 8 years and they get a work permit in the meanwhile, then that's going to encourage more people to come. If we could cut down that period, as you said earlier, I think you said 90 days, I've heard 6 months from other people. If we could cut down that period to adjudicate these asylum cases, of which 80% of the people will be denied asylum, and many of whom will be then deported immediately, it'll discourage other people from paying the coyotes and coming over here to do this stuff. So could you explain to me how we can reduce the time that it takes, what's it going to take from this body to reduce the time it takes to adjudicate the asylum cases from what is now years down to a matter of months?
Congressman, you are correct that reducing that time would change the risk calculus of intending migrants and deter them from taking the dangerous journey and spending their life savings in the hands of smugglers. The Senate bipartisan legislation would have delivered on that with changes to the system, policy changes to the system, as well as ample resources for us to implement those fixes.
Could you tell us some of the policy changes that would happen that would make the asylum process, we have about another 45 seconds, that would make the asylum process happen more quickly so these could be adjudicated? Because when everybody, when they get adjudicated, 80, 70, 80% get denied. And then they're not eligible to be here. So if we could speed that up, we'd stop this from happening. What are the policy changes?
Among the compromises that the Senate bipartisan legislation included was raising the credible fear standard, shrinking the disparity between that initial threshold screening standard and the ultimate merits standard. It also resourced, Congressman, our system with 4,300 asylum officers to adjudicate those cases much more swiftly.
Well, I want to thank you again for your public service. You know, I'm saddened when I hear some of the stuff that's being hurled about by different people. It's upsetting. It's not productive. We have serious business to do. These are serious problems. We don't want people creating crimes and breaking the law, but we got to work together to solve it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields. I now recognize Mr.